Jeff McLane is on a heater with the Eagles Insider of the Year thing and on uncovering the birds, which we'll touch on a few things from the pod. There was one thing that I thought probably encapsulated how this offseason is going and sort of some of my thoughts about the Eagles. Here's what he had to say.
Evolve is you used it, and Nick Sirianni used it, and a lot of it has to do with the quarterback, a lot of it, and they're basically signaling to not only Jeff Stoutland and the coaches, and we've now seen it, with Mahaffey coming in, that Jason Michaels will be out as tight end coach. It looks like Scott Loeffler, quarterback's coach, will be out. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Moorhead, the wide receivers coach, doesn't come back either. But it's like, hey, get on board, or we're moving along, and that's not just the coaches, but that's going to be Jalen Hurts, and that's going to be a lot of the other players as well.
Get on board or we're moving along. So what is clear to me about the Eagles is that rather than trying to fix what they had, they're trying to reinvent themselves. Not rebuild, but reinvent how they do things. And I understand it, and I think it's smart. I don't know Sean Mannion from a hole in the wall. So I don't know if he's the guy. Only they can know if he's the guy. But I think doing this the way that they're doing it makes sense to me. They had something, and it clicked when we were talking to Jason Kelsey yesterday. They had something that worked for years ago, like 2022. And Jason said to us that running game worked the way it worked. The offense worked the way it worked because so many defenses didn't know what to do with it. It was something that was new. And it worked, and then every single year, they Frankensteined it a little bit, and it gets maybe a little bit different and a little bit less effective. I know 2024, they won the Super Bowl, but I think on the whole, as an offense, it wasn't really clicking the same way that it was in 2022. The run game was working, for sure, but it wasn't really clicking. And I think sometimes when you have something successful, and then over time, it just changes a little bit. You wake up one day as you try to fix it, and you're not really doing the same thing that you were a few years ago. And it feels the same because all the changes have been small, right? A little tweak here, a little tweak there, a little tweak there. And I think what happened with the 2025 Eagles is they woke up and this thing that they were doing wasn't really good anymore. It was just kind of mediocre. And rather than trying to fix it, they said to themselves, we need to reinvent ourselves. We need to, instead of, erasing this and crossing out that, we need to rip up the paper and start a brand new sheet of paper and build it from nothing. And if you don't want to do it, if you are a coach, you're not in on what we're doing here. You are a player. You're not in on what we're doing here. We are doing this now, and we are going to do something new, and it's going to push the organization forward. And I think I really get it. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. Only Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni can know if Sean Mannion is the guy to do it, but the decision to do it, I agree with.
Yeah, this is where I separate from that line of thinking. They've been successful doing it the way that they've been doing it for years. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't tweak some things and change up minor things. But if you have a philosophy in which you believe in, that is the ingredients and a blueprint to being a consistent winner, having sustained success, even winning you a championship, a couple of championships, I don't buy, or I'm not easily sold on, let's scrap what we've been doing and being successful with for the last half decade plus, all because it didn't work this year. This wasn't about scheme to me. This was about player performance. Guys playing at the level that we are accustomed to them playing at and what we expect them to play at. And because they didn't do it for whatever reason we want to cope with and make an excuse for and say long season last year, they won the Super Bowl, Super Bowl hangover, whatever that is, that is a more viable explanation as to why things didn't work out the way everybody hoped they would this year versus let's scrap what we've been doing because you know what? It just ain't working anymore. Here's what I do know. Making the change for the sake of making the change doesn't mean it's going to work. So what you do is wind up and listen, they can withstand it. They're the Eagles. But it puts more pressure on you to be right about this because it's worked the other way. When the one thing that we've always sort of praised the Eagles for is that when everybody's zigging, the Eagles zag. This feels like I want to be doing what everyone else is doing. Oh, look at the Rams. Look at Sean McVay. Look at the Niners. Look at Kyle Shanahan. Look what they're doing. Oh, I need a McVay disciple. I need somebody from that coaching tree because this is what I want to do offensively. I'm sorry. Tip of the cap to Sean McVay for winning the Super Bowl 3 or 4 years ago. But how many other trophies on the case of Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur? How many other trophies on their case from what they've been doing? They got the one. They got the one. They don't have any others on the case. So the idea that I need to be emulating what these teams are doing, first of all, we don't even have that type of quarterback. We don't have that quarterback. And so now we're going to bring something in that he may or may not be comfortable with. And if you deem him not good enough, speaking of Jalen, who's our franchise quarterback right now, to do what Sean Mannion wants him to do, we're going to move on from our franchise quarterback? That's an awful lot of change in 2 years for a team that's been to two out of the last 4 Super Bowls and won one. I'm just saying, the Eagles, I hope they're right. But for me, this is a lot of change. This is a lot of change. And you know what else happens? These coaches didn't draft these players. So when you bring in a regime from an offensive standpoint or a defensive standpoint, you're drafting players that you think fit that scheme. So what are we going to start doing? Moving our players out now? The players that helped us win the Super Bowl because they don't fit this scheme? All I'm saying is we're putting a lot of trust in a guy who hasn't earned that trust yet. I don't care how many people praise him. This is no disrespect to Sean Mannion. He hasn't done it yet. He hasn't done it yet. And the last time the Eagles wanted to be where everybody else was at and be new age or get ahead, they hired a disaster for a head coach and Chip Kelly.
And that's true. And I have for years now wanted them to stop being scared of being bold again, right? And 215-592-9494, do you think the Eagles are overreacting or do you think they needed a big change, which is what they're doing? See, I think they needed it. And I think we can convince ourselves that the offense has been working. The offense has been working.
Well, they just won the Super Bowl.
They did. But no, we can all look at 22 and realize that 23 didn't look as good as 22. Even though they won the Super Bowl in 24, it didn't look as good as 22. 25 sure as hell didn't look as good as 22. And I don't think there was any fixing. And you mentioned Jalen. If he cannot adjust and grow, then maybe he's not the quarterback here in the future. Because if he's not as mobile as he was, if he's not going to run like he did, and if he's not going to become a better passer and be able to do different things, then maybe he's not the guy. And I think he should be ready to learn or go just like everybody else, just like the coaches, just like I think everyone.
He's going to be ready to learn, but is he going to excel at it?
Well, we'll find out. But they're going to need him to excel at something, because he hasn't really excelled in 3 years.
Well, how about this coach find a way to put him in position to excel?
Well, that includes him doing things different and better.
Yeah, but it also includes, we always say this, good, and coaches say this, but for some reason they get in position and then it changes. A coach will tell you, it's my job to fit my system around my players, as opposed to trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Sure, but I don't think not every coach that coaches the Shanahan style of offense is doing it the same way. Brock Purdy doesn't do it the same way as Matt Stafford does it, right? Like there's Tua Tagovailoa didn't do it the same way that Stafford and Purdy do it. I think it is a concept, and I'm sure that he will be willing to work within what Jalen's pluses and minuses are, but we can't do the thing where Jalen throws the ball 16 times a game and won't throw it over the middle and won't throw screen passes and won't go under center. If he won't run and won't do any of those things, then they do need another quarterback. And I do think being bold in this
I'm
way.
glad it's easily said than actually done.
Sure, yes, it
Finding
is.
another quarterback.
It is.
Right? That's
It
easy
is.
to say.
It is.
Get another quarterback.
It is. But for all the trust we give Howie and Jeffrey, one thing that they have done more times than not is when they go to hire a coach, they end up like that. And, Sean Mannion's not the head coach, but he's sure making head coach-like decisions, I would say, is that, Doug was the right one and they moved on from him. Nick was the right one. Maybe they could move on from him. Jeffrey Lurie hired Andy as well. So, they do have a pretty good record in hiring these guys and making these decisions.
Other than Andy, hiring Andy, the other guys had immediate success. Sustained success wasn't necessarily there.
And I think this
so
move...
hold on. So what I'm saying is when we say they hired the right coach, well, the right coach would still be here instead of being on the hot seat.
That's a good point.
They're firing coaches after you win the Super Bowl 2 years later doesn't mean you hired the right coach conveniently because you won. He had great assistants. Doug had Frank Reich and he had Jim Schwartz. And when Frank Reich left, things went to hell.
For sure.
Nick Sirianni had Shane Steichen, they won. He had Kellen Moore last year, they won. Every other year, this fan base has been ready to get the coach out of here.
Which is why I think it is smart of them.
So how are they hiring the right guy?
Well, but I think them empowering a coach, one of the things they wouldn't do with Doug and they wouldn't do with Sirianni is give them the sort of pull and the sort of responsibility that they used to give coaches.
Yeah.
And it does seem like there's a bit of a change here in that they are going to trust Mannion.
He's not the head coach.
Well, might be, but he's in charge of the offense, which is
he's more important than the head coach.
Right.
I would think
exactly.
so.
Yeah, he's more important than the head coach.
Right.
He is. And Jalen.
215.
How's he more important than the head coach?
Because
he hasn't done squat yet.
And that's fine. They are giving him more power than they ever gave the head coach, even when he won a Super Bowl.
And guess what? Nobody else gave him that power.
Who?
You mean other organizations?
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
But here, he's more important than Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, I'm asking why, though, because they say so?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, that's
I'm glad you're blindly following.
Well,
see, when you like it, you follow it.
No.
But when Jalen is in there as the quarterback, you're not buying that though.
Well,
that's eye test.
You're not buying Nick as the head coach right now. Sean Mannion is in here. You love him.
That's the baby boy.
Well, I have no idea if Mannion's going to be good. Yes. I like the idea of it. Whether he's good or not,
yeah. Well, he better be good.
Well, he better be. Yes.
And we done got rid of Jeff Stoutland.
215. Well, he quit.